Well, hello friends, welcome to episode 3, the final episode of our Past Pandemics series. I'm making this the final episode of the Past Pandemic series because 3 is a really good number to kind of just round things off with. Also, we get enough pandemic talk in the news today, and I really want to move us on to something a little bit happier and off the topic of, malaise and sickness. So today we're going out with a bang and talking about the most epic of the pandemics. It is the most devastating plague to hit the Byzantine Empire. It is one of the most deadliest plagues in history. It is the pestilence where one ancient writer claimed that the whole human race came near to being annihilated. That's right, we're talking about the Plague of Justinian. Wow. Oh, it feels kind of sad that I did that move for the last time. Let's travel back in time to the year 541. Emperor Justinian, otherwise known as Justinian the Great, because he was, great, was ruling the Eastern Roman Empire, and he was wishing to recover the past glory of the Roman Empire by recovering the now defunct western half of the Roman Empire. But trying to recover the west just wasn't enough for Justinian, so he also had military campaigns heading over to the Sasanian Empire in Persia. So he was burning the candle at both ends there. But Justinian had no idea that something much more sinister than war was on its way to the Byzantine capital of Constantinople, and it would affect nearly half the population of Europe. You already know what I'm gonna say, so let's just go ahead and do the dance together. It was the plague! I'm so sorry. The plague made its way to Africa via trading ships and land cargo from China and northeast India. Then it traveled from Egypt east into Palestine and then north to the Roman world. But which disease was it, you ask? Well, it was actually the plague. Yes, the plague. This is the very first documented evidence of Yersinia pestis in Europe. That's the official name for it anyways. You probably know it by its street name, the Black Plague. Whoa. The Plague of Justinian is the exact same strain as the Black Death. This is the first plague that we're talking about that is actually the plague. Like, it's the official plague. This is the plague that gets the highly sought after blue checkmark next to all of its social media platforms. How do we know it was Yersinia pestis, you ask? Good question. There were 2 skeletons exhumed about 50 years ago from a plague burial site dating to the 6th century in Lower Germany. And a few years ago, they were able to use one of the teeth to extract the genome for Yersinia pestis. See? Science always comes through. But how did the plague even travel from all the way over in China, through into Africa, up to Constantinople, and then into Europe? Flea-carrying rats. Oh my. Fleas love rats. And rats, while they'll pretty much eat everything, love grain. That means that grain houses became the perfect breeding grounds for our friend, the Rattus rattus. Is that really the scientific name for the rat? Because if it is, it's amazing. But not only does that mean lots and lots of rats in your grain stores, it means lots and lots of fleas. Those rats would bring their flea friends onto the trading ships and land carts heading to Africa, and they brought the plague along for the ride. At the time, Egypt and the rest of North Africa were considered to be the breadbasket for the Roman Empire. These provinces would send shipments of various trading goods throughout different routes, so it was a quick hop, step, and a jump for the plague to spread towards Constantinople and then further throughout the empire and the rest of Europe via military supply chains and other trading routes. Let's remember that at the time, Justinian is waging various military campaigns, and Italy is going through quite a dramatic climate shift. There are these unusual cold snaps happening on a regular basis that are causing a lot of food shortages because they're affecting the crops, and it's forcing a lot of people to migrate. So we've got wars, we've got hungry people on the move, and we've got an increased population of rats coming along for the adventure. This sounds like the perfect storm for spreading a plague. The writer Procopius, who was living in Italy at the time of the plague, and who also suffered and luckily recovered from it, left us a super detailed account of the goings-on and the symptoms. Sound familiar? Thucydides, anyone? Procopius describes some people as becoming delusional and having visions and nightmares of demons who were giving them this plague. Infecting people in their dreams sounds kind of like the prequel to Nightmare on Elm Street, doesn't it? Procopius also gives what I think is some very excellent advice on social distancing. The people who were seeing these demons and infective creatures tried to exorcise them, and when that didn't work, they turned to other extremes. Procopius writes, "But later on, they were unwilling to even give heed to their friends when they called to them, and they shut themselves up in their rooms and pretended that they did not hear, although their doors were being beaten down. fearing, obviously, that he who was calling was one of those demons. Pro tip from Procopius during these self-isolating times. Pretend your friends who aren't listening to the social distancing rules are demons. When they come a-knockin', lock yourself in your house, turn your phone on mute, and pretend you don't hear them. But let's talk real symptoms of the plague now, shall we? Those affected by Yersinia pestis suffered from fevers and had swelling in places like the groin, under the armpit, and behind the ears. People were even falling into comas and suffering for days before they died. Procopius claims the plague came from the city of Pelusium in Egypt, first appearing along the coasts of Europe and then spreading further inward. And this makes sense because a lot of the rats did come from ships. As I mentioned earlier, Justinian had kind of created the perfect environment for a plague to spread. Many of his military campaigns had been successful and he was so close to regaining the Roman Empire. But that means there was a lot of peace happening, a lot of connectivity within the Roman Empire, a lot of trading, a lot of, things that happened during economic good times. People were traveling more, commerce was really widespread. And then with Constantinople being the capital, it served as the perfect middle point for trading between East and West and North Africa. So that means the plague just exploded. I said it in the Antonine Plague video, and I'll say it again. No one is safe from the plague. Even Justinian the Great got it. But unlike Marcus Aurelius and Lucius Verus, who'd both possibly died of the Antonine Plague, Justinian luckily recovered. It was actually extremely lucky for both Procopius and Justinian to recover from the plague because the death rate was about 60%. People were dropping in the streets left, right, and center. So many people were dying that they had no room to bury them. Bodies were being stacked up on the streets, loaded on ships to be burned at sea, dumped in buildings, mass graves, pits. It was so bad that the military had to be called in to help handle all of the dead who were piling up. At its peak, some historians claim that the plague was killing upwards of 5,000 people per day in Constantinople. The outbreak lasted for about 4 months within Constantinople, but it never fully went away. From the years 541 to 750, there were between 15 and 17 total outbreaks. After that, we didn't see a full widespread outbreak of Yersinia pestis until the whole Black Death thing in the 14th century. As a result of this plague, many military campaigns and building projects had to be either halted or suspended. The massive amount of deaths caused a significant decline in tax revenue, which Justinian was still charging, by the way. That really gives us some more perspective on current events now, doesn't it? Procopius was even calling Justinian the devil for continuing to charge tax. Socially speaking, everything stopped. There was a huge disruption in both agriculture and trade. So many people were dying, there weren't people to till the fields, stores closed, the whole shebang. Everything came to a complete economic standstill. The lack of farmers, of course, then caused a food shortage because no one is there to till the fields, no one is there to care for the animals, and then no one is selling the food either. So people that were even suffering from the plague that could have maybe survived didn't have either caretakers or the food in order to give them the best shot at doing so. So it really compounded on the death toll. You see, it's that whole domino effect again. The plague of Justinian weakened the Byzantine Empire just at the point where it was about to take over the world. Some historians say that the damage of the plague was so great to both the Byzantine and the Persian empires that it made them extremely vulnerable to Muslim conquests. The devastation wrought by the plague may have even helped to usher in what we now call the Dark Ages in Europe. And we all know what happened in the Dark Ages, don't we? Skills were lost, population was low, and people feared the wrath of God more than ever. I did read somewhere though that it's believed that the plague of Justinian, because it killed so many people from all walks of life, did bring an end to serfdom within some parts of Europe. We were missing nobles, government officials, religious officials, everybody like that. So the population was so depleted and they needed just a regular workforce. So it does seem that maybe the chains of serfdom had been broken in order to try and recover from this population depletion. Not much research has been done on this yet though, so if you're looking for a thesis topic or something, there you go. I've given it to you. You're welcome. Enjoy. But it is something that's really interesting to think about. Overall, some historians believe the plague of Justinian to be one of the deadliest pandemics in history. Even though we talked about 2 other plagues in previous episodes, people have called the plague of Justinian the first true pandemic because it was spread across 3 separate continents. That, and it really did affect everyone and killed a lot of people. The estimated death toll is anywhere between 25 and 100 million people over the 2 centuries that outbreaks lasted. If it did indeed kill about 100 million people, that's about half the population of Europe at the time. I said this quote at the beginning of the episode, but I think Procopius did such a good job of summing up the Plague of Justinian that I'm gonna say it again. During these times, there was a pestilence by which the whole human race came near to being annihilated. That being said, recently, and I mean like super recently, like 2019 recently, some new research has been published saying that the death toll and the social after effects may have been highly exaggerated throughout history. Scholars looked at data sets for pollen evidence to try and see a decline in agriculture, and they have yet to find any. They also looked for data in changes to burial practices at the time, and again, not much evidence there. But regardless of how you measure it, the Plague of Justinian, just like all pandemics, left its mark on society. So there you have it, guys, the Plague of Justinian, the third and final plague of the past pandemics series. Hope you had fun on that little adventure with me. If you like this video, go ahead and smash that like button down below. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel while you're down there to make sure you're not missing out on any other videos, any other fun series that I'll be putting out. Big shout out to all of my patrons over on Patreon. If you like the YouTube channel and you want to support it in another way, go ahead and become a patron over on Patreon. The link to that is in my description below. You get some really cool stuff over there, like behind the scenes videos and early access to some of my new releases. Here are all of my socials. And remember, no one is safe from the plague. Stay dirty, my friends.